How can floating wind power enable the energy transition?
I think it's a critical technology for the fair, fast and sustainable energy transition. It's actually the only solution available for certain regions where the water depths are extremely deep and where there's not sufficient room available and a lot of constraints for the onshore technologies to be deployed.
Can you describe its potential? For example, compared to offshore wind power with fixed foundations?
Offshore wind power is a mature technology. It's a market that has been evolving for several years. Floating wind is relatively new. It is, I would say, technology that has been adapted from the oil and gas, has been adjusted. There has been quite a few prototype projects that have been implemented and have been operating for several years. I think technologically wise it is a mature technology. There are several options contrary to the fixed bottom. When a fixed bottom we had, let's say when the industry started gravity-based foundations, then we started adapting fixed monopiles into the mixture of technologies for fixed bottom foundations, and then from there we moved to the jackets a little bit later on. Whilst in floating wind we started with a different foot. We started with some technologies that have been adopted from the oil and gas and have been somehow redesigned into the specific floating wind application. The difference is that whilst in the fixed bottom it was pretty much technology cost reduction driven, in the floating wind space what we are seeing is that it's pretty much diverse technology that have been trying to find their route to market, and as a result we currently have, I think the last estimate from Wood Mackenzie was pointing to 127 different floating foundations currently under technology readiness path, which of course makes that transition a bit more challenging than the one we had on fixed bottom.
What are the main challenges and what can the industry do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think that the major challenge is standardization, industrialization. So at the moment, as I said, there's several concepts, but there's less than a handful of projects in operation, and I would say there are 3 technologies which can be considered mature, and that of course constrains the options on developing and standardizing and industrializing some of these concepts. So I think that mainly what we will need to see is the same that we have seen in the fixed bottom industry, which is the whole supply chain which was deriving from the oil and gas, adapting into a new industry, and then use that knowledge, that experience, of course, with new ideas and an accelerated path and pipeline of projects to somehow drive into the industrial stage where fixed bottom is today.
Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, of course. We've been using it in the industry for quite some years. Of course, the Roxtec solutions, plug and play, have been around for quite some while in the industry. They have been part in the industry, both on the turbine, both on the offshore substation. I think this is a solution that allows us to have the flexibility in the design that we require for a fast and easy implementation offshore.
Is it possible to use the same cable and pipe seals in floating wind power as in fixed bottom wind farms?
Yeah, I don't see a reason why, because the principal difference between fixed bottom and technology in terms of main cables, it is of course the in-array cable that is normally dynamic rather than static. But all the components, medium voltage, high voltage, low voltage, communications inside the floater, they shouldn't differ anything from the fixed bottom. So in my view, we just pick the solution and implement it on the floating wind design platform, whatever that is.
How can Roxtec help supporting the floating wind power industry? Is there a need for sealing expertise?
Of course, it's critical that we keep our structures watertight where they have to be watertight, and especially these sensitive components and high voltage components due to safety reasons. So for me, I would see critical your support at a very early stage in the design of the solutions and in the implementation of your plug-and-play solutions into the design of our wind farms. That's how I would see it.